This is for 5th grade ELA text set 12, Achieving a Dream. How does someone achieve the dream of becoming the best of what he or she loves to do? That is the essential question. How many of you play a team sport? What sports do you play? Do you ever dream of playing professionally when you grow up? This is a biography of someone who had that dream as a boy, but faced what seemed like an impossible obstacle. And yet he did it. He made it. He was a baseball player named William Hay. Let's read this story. Here is A Silent Star by Bill Wise. June 19, 1889. From his center field position, Washington Nationals star William Hay Hoy eyed the opposing team's base runner stretching his lead off second base, eager to score. Hoy had already thrown out 2 runners at home plate earlier in the game. Would this base runner also challenge Hoy's arm? Hoy peered in at the pitcher's mound. The Nationals pitcher was exhausted. His fastball had lost its zip, and Hoy knew it. With his pitcher tiring and a left-handed batter at the plate, Hoy decided to move closer to right field. The pitcher released the ball. The batter swung and blasted a scoring single toward Hoy. The base runner was off with the crack of the bat. Hoy, realizing there was going to be a play at home plate, charged the hard-hit ball. He snagged it cleanly on the second bounce and came up firing. The ball shot out of Hoy's hand like a cannonball and whistled its way to the catcher at home plate. The base runner slid wide of the plate in hopes of avoiding the tag, but the Nationals catcher swept his mitt across the diving runner. "He's out!" shouted the umpire through the cloud of dust. With his game-saving play, Hoy had made history. He became the first player ever to throw out 3 runners at home plate in one game. The crowd erupted into cheers. Then the fans did something else, something they always did to show their appreciation when Hoy made a great play. They threw confetti up in the air and widely waved their arms and hats and handkerchiefs. The fans made such a visual commotion because William Hoy was deaf. William Ellsworth Hoy was not born deaf. When he was 3 years old, he became very sick. He developed a high fever and chills and was too weak to get out of bed. With each day William was ill, his family grew more worried. Finally, a doctor came to the Hoy's farm in rural Hooktown, Ohio. I didn't know he was in Ohio. He told William's parents that their son had a serious infection called meningitis. The doctor shook his head sadly and said that there was nothing he could do to help this little boy. William was sick for many more days, and at last he began to get better. His family was relieved, but they soon found out that something had changed. The illness had left William deaf. He could not hear well enough to understand speech. So, based on what you know so far, what do you think will be the focus of this biography? As a young child in the 1860s, William struggled with his deafness because he could not hear. His speaking skills were very limited. He often used a pencil and paper to write down what he wanted to say. Some children teased William or were afraid to play with him because he was deaf and did not use his voice to communicate. Adults could be thoughtless, too, looking down on this boy or ignoring him together. Friendly and personable, William was confused, his feelings hurt. Everyone was different in some way. He wondered why people could not accept him as he was. When William was 10 years old, his parents sent him to the Ohio School of the Deaf in Columbus. That is actually a real place. William loved the school. For the first time in his life, he felt like he fit in. Nobody stared or pointed at him. Nobody felt sorry for him. William learned to use American Sign Language and to read lips. He enjoyed his classes in reading, writing, and mathematics. His absolute favorite thing, though, was the school baseball team. William had played ball with his brothers back home, but that was nothing like this. The school team had real uniforms, real umpires, real games. Every night, William dreamed of playing Major League Baseball, but making his dream come true was a real long shot. There had been only 2 deaf players, both pitchers, in the big leagues. At this time, a pitcher played about once every 4 days. William was an outfielder, a position that was played every day. No deaf everyday position player had ever reached the major leagues. So look at the illustration. Does the author mean dream literally? What is another word for the kind of dream William has? After William graduated from high school in 1879, he wondered what he would do next. Not many jobs were open to deaf people. So William's father convinced him to enter the trade he had learned in school, shoemaking. Back in Hucktown, at the age of 18, William went to work in the local shoemaker shop. There he spent his days fixing and making shoes. Day after day he sat on the wooden bench, toiling in the back of the store. All the work was done by hand, a slow and tedious process. Even though William would have preferred to be playing baseball, he worked diligently and took pride in everything he did. Soon William had saved enough money to buy the shoemaker's shop. When the sale was completed, one of the first things William did was build a baseball diamond on the weedy plot of land out back. Then he invited the local teenagers to play ball there. For most of the year, work kept William so busy he had no time for baseball, but during the summer when many townspeople went barefoot, the shoe business was slow. Sometimes William would temporarily close the shop and join the backyard games. What have you learned about him as a person? One June day in 1885, a coach from an amateur baseball team passed through Hucktown. Always looking for new players, he stopped to watch the game behind the shoemaker shop. The coach marveled at William's baseball skills. After the game, the coach approached, hoping to talk to his impressive player. He tapped William on the back and asked if he would like to play baseball for an amateur team. William turned around. He had no idea what the coach had just said. To show the man that he was deaf, William began speaking in sign language. Unnerved by the rapid hand movements, the coach abruptly took off, leaving William bewildered. The next day, however, the coach returned. Once again, William dazzled him. And once again, the coach approached after the game. This time, the coach was prepared. He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out a pencil and a notepad, and wrote out an offer for William Hoy to play on his team. Delighted, Hoy nodded and shook the coach's hand. For the rest of the summer, Hoy traveled to towns and cities around Ohio playing games with his new team. A year later, Hoy tried out for the Oikawash Club, a minor league baseball team. Most folks were sure Hoy would get cut. A deaf player at the amateur level was one thing, but they doubted he would make it playing with the pros. Hoy proved them wrong. He played so well he was offered a spot in the Oikawash team. Leaving the shoe business behind, he closed the shop for good and joined the minor leagues. Minor league baseball was full of professional players who would do anything to gain an advantage. Because he could not hear the home plate umpires shouting balls and strikes when he was at bat, Hoy had to turn around to look at the ump after each pitch. The umpire would repeat the call, and as Hoy read the ump's lips, opposing pitchers often quick-pitched Hoy, throwing the next ball before he was ready to hit. As a result, Hoy's hitting suffered, and he struggled at the plate. He finished the season with a dismal .219 batting average. So, Hoy is about to try out for the major leagues. Is he persistent starting to pay off? Hoy did not give up on his dream. Between seasons, he came up with a plan that allowed him to follow the home plate umpire's calls. When he returned to Oshkosh for the 1887 season, Hoy was ready. His plan was simple. After each pitch, he would glance down the left field line at his team's third base coach. The coach would thrust his left arm in the air to indicate the ump had called a ball, his right arm in the air if the ump had called a strike. Hoy no longer had to turn around. He was always ready for the next pitch. That season, Hoy batted .368, one of the best batting averages in minor league baseball. His performance did not go unnoticed. Shortly after the season ended, he received an invitation to try out for the Washington Nationals of the National League. The news that William Hoy had been contacted by the major league team traveled quickly throughout Ohio. Again, most people thought he would fail. They believed big league baseball has no place for a man who could not hear and did not speak. It did not matter to Hoy what people thought. He knew he would succeed. He was determined to prove to everyone that a deaf person could indeed play Major League Baseball. And if he could make it, maybe other deaf players could make it too. Competition in training camp was tough. Hoy had to battle good players from all over the country. But Hoy worked hard. He paid close attention to the other players and anticipated all the possible plays on the bases and in the field. By the end of the camp, Hoy had earned a starting position on the Nationals. Years ago, the word dumb was used to mean not able to speak, and Hoy's new teammates quickly tagged him with the nickname Dummy. Today, calling a deaf person dumb would be derogatory and offensive, but in Hoy's day, it was acceptable. Hoy carried his nickname with pride. Dummy became the name he preferred, and he often corrected people who called him William. Over the next 14 years, Hoy left no doubt in anyone's mind that he was one of the baseball's best and smartest players. Season after season, he consistently ranked among major league leaders in assists, putouts, walks, singles, stolen bases, and times on base. Sports writer called him the best fielding outfielder in the National League. In the spring of 1900, another deaf player signed a major league contract. Luther Taylor, a Kansas farm boy, joined the New York Giants as a starting pitcher. Hoy thought it would be an honor to bat against Taylor one day. 2 years later, when Hoy was playing for the Cincinnati Reds, he had the opportunity. On May 16, 1902, Hoy's team hosted Taylor's New York Giants. For the first and only time ever, a deaf batter would face a deaf pitcher in a big league game. Thousands of fans crammed the Cincinnati Reds' beautiful new palace of the fans' ballpark. When a superb sinker ball, Taylor had quickly established himself as a top-notch pitcher. Hoy knew that Taylor was the opposition while on the playing field, but he also admired the young pitcher. As Hoy approached home plate to bat, he politely greeted Taylor. "I'm glad to see you," Hoy signed. So what do you imagine it was like for Hoy to play against another deaf player? Do you think it will influence his playing? Hoy took his stance in the batter's box. Taylor went into his windup and unleashed his trademark sinker. The ball started out high and then often dropped sharply. The ball started out high and then dropped sharply into the strike zone. Hoy stood his ground but did not swing. Strike one. Hoy dug and won for the next pitch. Taylor reared back and threw another sinker. This time, Hoy swung and missed. Strike two. Hoy stepped out of the batter's box and rapped the sides of his cleats with his bat. Stepping back to the plate, he moved to the front of the box. Taylor wound up and fired a pitch, heeled for the lower outside corner of the plate. Hoy was ready. He pounded a ground ball that scooted past the short stop and into center field for the base hit. As Hoy stood on first base, he exhaled. Then he looked at Taylor. The young pitcher gave Hoy a slight tip of his hat. Hoy tipped his hat too and smiled. The New York Giants won the game that day. The Cincinnati Reds did not like to lose, but Hoy could not help but feel proud. Two deaf players had squared off against each other in a major league game. It was an historic day for baseball. A year later, in 1903, Hoy retired from professional baseball. He bought a 60-acre farm near Cincinnati, where he and his wife, Anna, who was also deaf, raised their 3 children. Hoy proved to be as skillful at farming as he was at playing baseball. He operated a successful dairy business for more than 20 years. In 1924, Hoy sold the farm and became a personal director for several hundred deaf employees at the Goodyear Rubber Company in Akron, Ohio. He also coached and umpired in deaf baseball leagues. Hoy remained connected to professional baseball, too. Because of his contributions to the sport, he was awarded a lifetime pass to Major League Baseball events. He attended games